Now we're cooking, baby. That's what I'm talking about. That is what I've been waiting for. Oh my god, episodes 2 and 3 of Daredevil Born Again just dropped, and I feel like I just took 40 shots of adrenaline. I'm so excited that I actually can't sit down right now, and I have it no other way. From the stress of a challenging revolution, to the return of Bullseye, to British Wesley being the throat goat, to Daredevil and Swordsman running the fade in the coolest prison break of all time, Born Again has finally found its own unique identity. If episode 1 was a reintroduction as they set the stage for what we can expect this season, these two episodes took the ball and ran with it to their fullest extent, giving us some of the most pure Daredevil storytelling that we haven't seen since the Netflix days. I appreciate how much time they spent fleshing out the supporting cast and making everyone feel important. The focus on the revolution and what those in power are willing to do to stop it is great, up until this powder keg finally explodes with some insane action. I can't even begin to talk about these two episodes without discussing spoilers, so please just go watch them for yourself at least 6 times like I have, then come back here and freak out alongside me. I think it's only fitting we start with Daredevil himself, considering the show is named after him after all, because I love what they're doing with his arc this season. Even if he is kind of taking a backseat these 2 episodes up until that explosive finale, but that's a welcomed thing. Matt is still getting the focus he needs as the lead, only now the writers are able to balance the screen time with the rest of the supporting cast. The people surrounding Daredevil are what made the Netflix show so interesting in the first place, as they all had compelling motivation, so to see these side characters feel just as important as Daredevil makes me incredibly happy. Okay, but to get back on track and actually talk about Daredevil himself, I'm really enjoying the direction they're taking Karen and Matt right now, as their honeymoon phase is starting to end due to the horrors of war catching up with them. Episode 1 had this insane cliffhanger where Bullseye actually saved Daredevil's identity, and now we get to see Matt and Karen debate what that means, which is really juicy to dive into. Not only has he spent so much time trying to ruin both of their lives, but he literally just killed their best friend, and now he's trying to save Matt's life? It's such a cool and natural conflict to bring between these two, as Matt Murdock is somebody who always looks for the best in people and seeks redemption, potentially seeing a light at the end of the tunnel for Dex, while Karen is not even willing to entertain that idea because of the personal trauma she's had to suffer at his hand. She is very much so a realist and understandably cynical when it comes to Bullseye, so it's really compelling to contrast that with Matt's viewpoint, as this starts to drive a small wedge between them as they're beginning to butt heads. The most interesting argument these two have this episode, though, is about if they should kill Fisk or not. I think it's so cool that over every season of Daredevil, Matt has been struggling with this idea of if he should kill Fisk or not, and they've always done it in really compelling ways as he's gone up against different characters and different ideologies, but now he has Karen actively rooting to kill Fisk, which I think is a natural development for her character. It's very interesting to see how she and Matt have kind of swapped sides in this argument, where in season 3 of the Netflix show, Karen was actively trying to tell Matt not to do it while Matt wanted to put him in the grave. But now the roles are reversed, where Matt wants to try and use the system to his advantage and put the word out there for the people to make the final decision, where Karen, walk him down page, is seriously questioning if it's time to end him for good. Honestly, it does seem like the Punisher is rubbing off on her in a way as she's reconsidering these extreme measures, so it feels like a natural extension of that dynamic between them brought into this season. And for someone like Karen, who has taken a life before and isn't afraid to brag about it, I think it makes sense for her being pushed to this brink where Fisk has taken over the entire city and gotten to points they never thought he could, to want to end this for good. And that doesn't help when they're already buckling under the pressure of starting this revolution. One of my favorite things this season is doing is showing that the revolution will not be easy, but with enough time and calculated attacks and enforcements from everyday people, it will be effective. For the entire season thus far, Matt and Karen have had their backs up against the wall, and it's only getting worse now. Even when Daredevil is able to get this huge win and be the catalyst for the Northern Star sinking, they stage it to make it seem like it was only carrying diapers to further this agenda of Daredevil's terrorist attack on the city, so they can't even get a single win as they're unable to compete with Fisk's propaganda machine. This is especially taking a toll on Matt, as we're seeing him more directionless than ever in his life, just trying to do whatever he can to stay afloat. You can tell with his decision making that he's no longer as careful as he used to be, doing these big risky moves, just hoping to make any kind of impact that he can. And I think that is so great to put him in this position where he's forced to act even when he doesn't know what to do. That's where Karen comes in to pick up the slack, as she's willing to make those tough calls and do the things that he might not have been willing to do, like kidnap a member of the task force. Also, quick side note, but I do really love that Matt and Karen's rendezvous place is the same Indian restaurant they ate at in season 2. Not only is it just a gorgeous location, but it's cool that they're honoring that legacy from the original show and showing just how important that date was for them. When all this war is behind them, I think it'd be really cool if we get one more scene where they finally get to go on a proper date again together and they visit that restaurant again. The interrogation scene is genuinely definitely really funny with Matt being this human lie detector just to scare him into telling the truth. But my favorite detail about it is the fact that this task force agent is the same person from the season 1 finale who objected to that one guy killing the kid. The way this new creative team is tying everything together feels so satisfying, as even the most minor characters whose names I could not tell you if you gave me $1 million are getting a payoff to their arc. That is the kind of love and attention to detail I missed in my Daredevil show and is so welcome to see back here. And that guy's a real one for giving them the keycard into the Red Hook warehouse, because it means we got that insane action scene at the end of the episode, but we'll get to that shortly. Trust me, I am dying to talk about it. While Matt and Karen are barely getting by as they're being flushed out of their safe house in insanely cool action scenes, above ground, we get to see the legal perspective again from Kirsten McDuffie. And I said it last week, but I'll say it again because it's amplified even more here. I love how much she's being the legal focus of the season. Matt's too busy smashing people's heads in and slutting himself out to do anything on the legal front right now, and now Kirsten gets to step up and be one of the most compelling characters in the entire season as they continue to test her faith in the law with the trial of the swordsman. First off, Kate Bishop, my beloved girl failure. What are you doing, man? You gotta lock in. Your almost stepfather's on trial and you're not even here? Is this a coordinated attack against me? But besides that, I really love what they're doing with this story, seeing all the unlawful hoops Kirsten has to jump through just to get him to trial, doing all this work and trying to go above and beyond for a case that was doomed from the start as they're not even gonna give her a fighting chance. It goes a very long way to show how corrupt the system has become, with Fisk's thumb tipping the scales of justice. And I think this is all best summed up in Jack's line when he says this is for the entertainment of the masses, presented in all its ugly glory by the man whose hand holds the scales. Jack Duquesne is such a great character. He just shows up, aura farms, says the coolest line you've ever heard, and then aura farms again. I love how chill he is. He's such a vibe. I know he's completely different from comic swordsman, but he's too cool for me to care. But if I could just shout out 2 specific Kirsten scenes, I really love this episode, which is a sentence I couldn't say last season. First is when she called Heather out on her BS. It was long overdue for somebody to humble her, and I love that she did not hold back whatsoever. It is very interesting, though, to see Heather commit to this agenda in spite of how much she knows it's wrong, because she'd rather lock up an innocent man than get her own PTSD in check. That is such an interesting decision for a character to make, and I love that people are starting to challenge her on it. Then the second is when she finally gets roped into Daredevil's antics. Oh my god, I've been waiting so long to see this happen. This right here, best shot of the episode, by the way. If you told me that was from Daredevil Season 1, I would completely believe you. Jeffrey Waldron, the cinematographer for this episode, locked in like crazy, making everything feel as atmospheric and moody as possible. And the best part is that he's coming back as the director of photography next season, which gives me so much faith that we're only going to see the visuals continue to improve more and more. But the way Kirsten gets tied into the plot as Matt uses his senses to retrace her blindfolded steps into the prison, it is such a creative way to use his abilities and an even more natural way to tie Kirsten into the story. They have a very fun back and forth in the comics, so I'm excited that they're starting to lay those seeds for the future, but it has a great payoff in this episode already. And I know I'm already all over the place, but if I can just go back to the trial of the swordsman real quick, I think it's really cool how it parallels the trial of the White Tiger from the first season. That was also a public trial revolving around a vigilante, but you can compare them side by side to see how far everything has fallen. And funny enough, that was also in episode 3 last season, so I feel like that has to be intentional. And it's just a really cool way to track the progression of this series. While we're on the topic of the White Tiger, I want to talk about Angela Del Toro and how they're handling Hector's legacy this season. Everything that happened with the White Tiger in season 1 was peak and probably my favorite part of that entire season. So I'm very happy to see these story beats continue here, and especially in a really cool way as they're using Angela to show how the anti-vigilante task force is directly affecting everybody on the ground level. Man, I thought the task force was bad last episode, but this time around they're making those ice comparisons too easy with how inherently evil they are. And that is a tough level of evil to match up with. Powell continues to be as big of a monster as ever, I cannot wait for him to die, and Cole North is back, managing to survive an effing explosion. I do really hope he gets a redemption arc because his character is so cool in the comics and I want him to get closer to that. But once again, the worst thing the anti-vigilante task force does is make me feel even worse for Cherry. I can't believe I'm saying this, but they keep finding ways for me to feel sympathetic for Cherry and like him as a character. God, I owe him so many apologies for all the numerous times I wished death upon him, but in my defense, he was bald. The fact that the task force thought they could just march into the hospital and get away with killing Cherry is crazy, but I do love the little moment with all the old police officers sticking by him just to protect him. I think that's really sweet and a great way to show how normal people can fight back against this task force. It is such a great message that is littered throughout all these episodes, especially when it comes to the White Tiger, who is who we were supposed to be talking about. We see her aunt unceremoniously arrested for quote-unquote assaulting an officer when all she did was grab him, and it basically acts as the final straw for Angela, as she's not willing to lose yet another relative to these monsters. The real-world comparisons with ICE's terrorism draw even closer here, as we see them illegally take these people who have done nothing wrong and are just practicing their right to protest in because they don't agree with what's happening. I do really appreciate how overtly and unapologetically political Season 2 has been. Every single episode we see the task force snowballing into becoming worse and worse as they grow more power hungry. So as they grow more dangerous, it becomes even more inspirational when Angela can't take it anymore and she finally decides to stop standing idly by and prove that anyone can make a difference by joining the fight. The themes of legacy are strong here, and I think they're doing a great job passing down that mantle, while also making Angela's story that of her own, as she's able to make a difference in the world, and she doesn't even have to use the amulet to do so. That little moment where she slashes the tires with Hector's knife is perfect. And Camila Rodriguez does not get enough credit for how good she is in this show. She comes in and gives great performance after great performance after great performance. And she's only 16 years old. That is a star in the making. But here's the thing. The White Tiger's arc this episode reaches a natural conclusion along with all the other plot lines in this episode as they collide together to give us the best action scene in the entirety of Born Again and one of the best in Daredevil history with the one-take prison break fight scene. Dude, holy shit. That first moment when Matt breaks into the prison, I sat up in my seat and didn't sit back down for the rest of the episode. I was locked in like never before. Daredevil and Swordsman are the duo I never knew I needed in my life. I love watching them bounce off of each other and join this fight together. Whoever it was on the Born Again creative team that decided to take Tony Dalton from Hawkeye and drop him into this world is my new favorite person on the planet. They're making such great use of his talents and turning him into one of the most enjoyable side characters in the MCU. I love the little moment when Matt gives him this piece of rebar and Jack realizes in real time he can use it as a sword. The sheer glee on his face put the biggest smile on mine. He's just a guy who loves to stab people and it's the best thing ever. What makes this action even better though is that the camera work is off the charts. I genuinely don't know how they managed to pull this off, but the one take was seamless. It's not like they're just doing this for the sake of doing a oneer either. The stylization is done purposefully to show how overwhelming Matt's senses can be throughout the fight, and we get some really cool camera tricks, like when Matt is 2 steps ahead of the audience and the camera has to catch up with his movements to show how he has this constant awareness that we don't. It's a perfect blend of both style and substance. I especially love the emphasis on Daredevil saving everybody there. He will always be a character who stands up for the little guy as this champion of the oppressed, and Born Again is doing a great job reinforcing that message this season. So not only do we have great character moments, we've got great camera work and some really creative action. I love how Matt continues to use his billy clubs as his primary weapon, throwing them around in the coolest ways possible and actually using the wires as a weapon. It makes him feel like such a menace. But by far, the most impressive thing about this entire sequence is that they bring back the fog, but it's done in a practical reason, and it actually looks good. That's probably the biggest indication of how much the visuals have improved over time with this show, because the fog was my biggest complaint last season, but they get to do it again in this way, where it looks cool, and we get to see Matt using it to his advantage as he blinds the other task force members so he can take them down with ease. The moment where Matt pulls the smoke down and the score starts blaring sent full chills down my entire body. Oh god, the Newton brothers are hitting new levels with their score. I could talk about this fight scene for hours, and I probably will. The second that started, something shifted in the episode, and I felt like I was transported back to 2018 watching Netflix Daredevil again. Honestly, the entirety of episode 3 feels like it was ripped straight out of that original Netflix show with how in tune it was with those themes and how well every character was written, only it's being done in this new and refreshing way that culminates in an action scene that took my breath away. It's crazy that the Punisher broke out of here and didn't even bother to save anybody else, but it gave us this peak action scene, so I'll cut him some slack. Then, to change pace real quick, on the other side of the coin is Fisk's war on vigilantes. Yeah, that's right, we've only talked about half of what makes these 2 episodes so great. There's just that much to love in them. If there's one perfect line to describe Kingpin in this episode, it's how he hates sand. But if there's another perfect line, it's when Vanessa asks him, "How many worlds do you need to conquer?" And Fisk responds with, "How many are there?" If that doesn't summarize the Kingpin and his unquenchable thirst for power, I don't know what does. His greed is definitely going to be his downfall one day, as Vanessa seems to want a child and an heir to their empire, threatening us with a Fisk sex scene. scene. While he's dismissive to her as he wants to focus on consolidating more power, kind of forgetting the reason he wanted this power in the first place to protect her, and because of that, he's putting so much time into what he doesn't have that he's not even appreciating what he has already, so Vanessa better enjoy her last few days of life because she looks to be the most soon-to-be killed-off character of all time. But Fisk doesn't care. He's way too busy dealing with the governor breathing down his neck as he's trying to exist in this world of politics that has so many rules and regulations he's so used to breaking. All of that stuff is great, but by far my favorite thing that Fisk did this episode was the new campaign he's putting out in New York where he had to publicly brand Matt Murdock as a hero. First of all, I really love that Fisk is forced to call Matt a hero for saving his life since he can't out him as a vigilante without ruining his whole campaign. But secondly, the way he chokes on his words calling Matt a hero is so good. You can tell how upset he was having to run that angle. I honestly think saying that hurt him more than actually exploding. It's very funny, but also a really smart direction to take Fisk this season as he's doing whatever it takes to push his propaganda, even finding a way to twist the one singular win Matt had by having his identity protected with this mutually assured destruction, as he makes it so all the people who support vigilantes look for Matt Murdock, while all the people who hate vigilantes search for Daredevil. So no matter what happens, Matt is not going to be afforded a single moment of peace as both sides of his life are being hounded by the public at Fisk's demand. It is such a calculated move that goes a long way to show how far Fisk is willing to go to screw over Matt Murdock and vigilantes as a whole. Even more so with how Fisk is trying to make it seem like Bullseye is just as much of a vigilante as Daredevil, equating them as one and the same to push this agenda. Obviously, Bullseye is no hero. We all know what a monster he is, but if Fisk is able to convince the general public that Bullseye and Daredevil are the same kind of person, it's basically game over for Matt as his reputation is ruined in the public eye. But what makes that so interesting is that what Fisk thinks is a smart move to destroy Daredevil in turn validates Bullseye in a sense, as in his sick and twisted mind, he's now being told that he's like Daredevil and he thinks what he's doing is good. So basically, because Fisk is so petty and wants Daredevil destroyed at all costs, he has made Bullseye hate him even more as now Dex is going out of his way to take down the anti-vigilante task force just for the love of the game, because every time he does it, it makes him feel more like Daredevil. It is such a small moment, but just the idea of him starting out in a church does a lot to show us how Dex thinks he's on this righteous quest seeking absolution. And I especially love how it calls back to this line in Season 3 when Dex says,
"If I were wearing a mask, the press would be calling me a hero. Instead, I'm sitting in here with you trying to justify protecting myself."
It really feels like he's being proven right in a way this season. We didn't get too much Bullseye in these two episodes, but I do love how they sowed those seeds for the future as this agent of chaos. I can't get that opening scene with him out of my head. Seeing Dex in civilian clothes again is for some reason so unsettling. And he didn't even do anything, but I'm already terrified. By far, my favorite visual trick Born Again has introduced is what I'm going to call the Bullseye vision, when they use the blue lighting as a warning that Dex is about to lock in. We see it return here, and it is such a good way to immediately give you this sense of dread knowing that he's about to strike, to where we can just see Bullseye playing around with this knife in blue lighting, and you can tell that he left that church a bloodbath. And now, because that blue light trick has been established, we can see it pay off with Vanessa's storyline, as that blue light immediately makes us feel on edge thinking that she might die right now, only for it to be revealed as this trippy dream sequence. The fact that Dex had a direct, clear shot of Vanessa and decided not to kill her is really interesting because you can tell he wants this to be a public display for the world to see. As if just killing her isn't enough anymore and he needs to send a message to Fisk as part of the revolution. I can already tell it's going to be the craziest moment ever when he does finally take that shot, and I think I know what's gonna happen. But you gotta wait till the end of the video for theories because I need to increase watch time. If you could have heard the noise I made seeing that baseball roll into frame, you would think so much less of me as a person, but I can't help it. I take this Daredevil stuff seriously and love a good Season 3 callback. The new creative team just gets it. I love when they throw in little Easter eggs like that just to prove to us they know what they're talking about here. Like, the fact that they finally name-dropped Sister Maggie had me so excited. After they introduced her in Season 3, it felt weird to just not mention her ever again. Especially with Matt on the run now, you'd think he'd go to her for help, but now we get this answer that she's on an excursion in Rome, so it finally makes sense to where she is. The fact that they went out of their way to write her off gives me faith that we're going to see her next season, which I really hope happens. With everything Matt has been through since the last time we saw them on screen, I cannot wait to see how their dynamic changes. And then if I can just circle back around to the whole Vanessa point I was talking about earlier, pairing her up with Heather makes so much sense, and I cannot believe I didn't think about it sooner. Obviously, these two characters are going to bond over their hatred of vigilantes and the paranoia they both face. Vanessa came within a hair of Bullseye killing her several different times, so of course she's gonna be worried that the monster she set loose is gonna come back to get her again. And now that she's able to share that paranoia with Heather, it's basically going to go a step further to validate Heather's fear of vigilantes even more, knowing that someone that powerful also feels the same way and struggles with these same visions she does, seeing Muse everywhere. The fact that she kept his mask and it basically paralyzes her with fear is the clearest indication to me that she's going to become Lady Muse one day, probably sometime soon, honestly, and I'm really looking forward to that. I think it's a great way to flesh Heather's character out even more than they did in the comics and give her this new direction that fits with Born Again's themes as she's radicalized more and more. One thing I especially didn't see coming though was this back and forth Buck and Heather have together. It's a great conversation that gives you so much insight on Buck's role in Fisk's empire as this guy who pretty much has everybody else figured out, and I love the idea of having him paired up with this wild card. God, I don't say it enough, but Buck is great. In season 1, he was just a little bit more than British Wesley, but now we're able to see him get so much depth as this character who sees himself as a knight in shining armor, willing to do the dirty work even when he doesn't like it, just to make Fisk happy. What's so cool about Buck compared to Wesley is that Wesley was very cold and calculated in the Netflix show, while Buck has more of a personality to him. He's clearly more unhinged, but is able to keep this facade as a suave James Bond-esque character. Also, the fact that he's basically tasked with babysitting Daniel is great. I love the chemistry those two have together. Ever since I saw somebody describe those two as evil Matt and Foggy, I have not been able to look at them any other way. That is exactly what they operate as. Buck is out there at night doing the dirty work to keep the city safe in his own eyes, while Daniel is handling things on the legal front. They're literally just evil Matt and Foggy, and it works great to give them this new role in the series and flesh out their camaraderie together. It's gonna suck and be really interesting to see though when Daniel's back is pushed against the wall and Buck has to act against him. There's a ticking time bomb between that relationship where you can tell something is gonna crack sooner rather than later, and it's gonna be glorious. I cannot believe Daniel actually got Buck to eat that hot dog. That might be the most important thing that happened in this episode, honestly. He really liked it too, but that just goes to show how good Daniel is at everything apparently, because he's just unfairly charming for how overtly fascist he is. I guess that's just the Gandolfini effect though. He is such a scene stealer. God, it makes things so satisfying when we see BB playing him like a fiddle, planting the evidence on his laptop and doing all the Fisk propaganda under his nose. Between BB and Daniel, I'm very curious to see who gets in trouble with Fisk first, and I really hope neither of them die because I think they're great characters. BB especially, now that they finally confirmed she's the person running all these fake Fisk ads. I'm glad they didn't drag it out because the reveal was obvious and now we get to spend more time with BB as an even more compelling character. It is such a cool idea to have BB working for Fisk and pushing out this propaganda on his behalf, all while also being his biggest op, making these very funny ads trashing him. I nearly spit out my water when this insane shot popped up on my screen. And as an extension of all the BB Report propaganda, I really love how they're using environmental storytelling to contrast that. While the BB Report has been turned into this sanitized Fisk propaganda, we get all of that interspliced with shots of spray paint showing us the citizens' true opinions on Fisk. It's such a smart way to show, not tell, what's happening in New York right now and make the city feel like a character in and of itself, as Fisk is trying to suppress the true opinions, but they still bleed through. And then all of those storylines on the Fisk front come together and result in Fisk blowing up the Northern Star. This is a new level of horrifying even for him. He's gone from smashing heads in car doors and strangling Ben Urich to killing entire crews of his men just to send a message. When Powell said the entire night crew was there, and Fisk responded by saying, "Good, we can use that," my jaw dropped. He has become so disconnected from his humanity in order to push this movement that he's willing to do horrific acts just to presumably frame Daredevil and conflate his prison break with this explosion that he isn't responsible for. It has me really excited to see what Matt does next, because with every win comes an even bigger loss as Fisk is willing to take more risks than he is just to fight back. So in that same vein of talking about the future, I want to make a few predictions for next episode. It seems like next episode is going to be the charity boxing match between Fisk and the Matterhorn. So as the midpoint for the season, I think something big is going to happen, that being Vanessa dies next week. We know Fisk is going to lose his temper like crazy during that boxing match to the point where he pulls a gun for the first time ever in live action, which is crazy. And the only thing that can make him that mad is Vanessa's life at stake. So this is what I think is going to happen. Fisk is doing this big boxing match for charity to try and rehab his public image. But as the fight is happening, it gets interrupted by Bullseye, who knows Vanessa is going to be there and finally returns to strike, killing Vanessa during the fight because he knows Fisk can't do anything about it with all the coverage there, sending Fisk crazy as he probably kills the Matterhorn in the middle of the ring. And putting those two on a collision course as Daredevil has to be the one to come in and make the rescue. It's gonna be insane to see those three in the same place at the same time again, especially when the stakes are that high because, come on, we all know Vanessa's gonna die, right? They didn't do all that foreshadowing this episode for nothing. Vanessa's death is the biggest possible catalyst for the entire season that will send everybody on this collision course that results in total destruction. Fisk is gonna go DEFCON 1 against Vigilantes. Matt and Karen are going to have to make some incredibly risky decisions as they probably have to team up with Bullseye, who is now public enemy number 1, all while Heather probably snaps seeing Vanessa die like that, knowing that she could be next, so that's going to push her one step closer to becoming Lady Muse, and then Foggy's going to be revealed to be alive. Okay, well that last one probably won't happen, but I need to force it into every single video so I can manifest it becoming reality. Man, it's so cool to see all the improvements they've made in real time to make Born Again better than ever. The visuals are gorgeous across the board, the characters are more interesting, the action is vastly improved. It's genuinely impressive as they continue to prove my faith was not misplaced in this creative team. I've never done Heroine before, but I imagine it doesn't even come close to the feeling of watching Born Again episode 3. I'm gonna be rewatching that Prison Break forever. And the fact that these two episodes were also considered the slow part by every single reviewer? What the hell is gonna happen in the back half of the season, guys? Besides Vanessa obviously dying in the most gruesome way anyone has ever died in human history. Seriously, I don't know how they expect me to wait that long to see more peak. And you know what? I'm not gonna do it. I think what's gonna happen is that I'm gonna get a hot dog and chug a bottle of sleeping pills to pass out for the next week so I don't have to wait as long. I'm sure nothing bad's gonna happen there, right? Oh well, only one way to find out. But while I go do that, why don't you let me know down below your thoughts on episodes 1 and 2 of Daredevil Born Again Season 2. I would genuinely love to hear what everyone has to say and continue the conversation down below. And while you're at it, make sure to give this video a like and subscribe so you don't miss the next one. If you don't do it, I'm stabbing you with a piece of rebar swordsman style. You're gonna get so much tetanus from it, and also probably lose a lot of blood. But think of the tetanus and subscribe.